I'm Krishnanandini Devi Dasi, and I'm very honored that we can share some of our insight, experience with the devotee community and the world at large with help for relationships and marriage and just getting along in general in the world, and using our scriptures as a background. And not being reluctant to talk about some of the more controversial scriptures. So I'm grateful to be able to do that with my God sister today.
Hare Krishna. So we've chosen a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 3rd chapter, 10th verse. It's in the chapter where Sukanya gets married to Cyavana Muni. So we thought it was a very interesting place to start. So it's 9, 3, 10. Sukanya Chavana Prapya Pratim Paramakopanam Priyanama Sachityagya Apramatanuvrittivi. Cyavana Muni was very irritable, but since Sukanya had gotten him as her husband, she dealt with him carefully according to his mood. Knowing his mind, she performed service to him without being bewildered.
Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is an indication of the relationship between husband and wife. A great personality like Cyavana Muni has a temperament of always wanting to be in a superior position. Such a person cannot submit to anyone. Therefore, Cyavana Muni had an irritable temperament. His wife, Sukanya, could understand his attitude, and under the circumstances, she treated him accordingly. If any wife wants to be happy with her husband, she must try to understand her husband's temperament and please him. This is victory for a woman. Even in the dealings of Lord Krishna with his different queens, it has been seen that although the queens were the daughters of great kings, they placed themselves before Lord Krishna as his maidservants. However great a woman may be, she must place herself before her husband in this way. That is to say, she must be ready to carry out her husband's orders and please him in all circumstances. Then her life will be successful. When the wife becomes as irritable as the husband, their life at home is sure to be disturbed or ultimately completely broken. In the modern day, the wife is never submissive, and therefore home life is broken even by slight incident. Either the wife or the husband may take advantage of the divorce law. According to the Vedic law, however, there's no such thing as divorce law, and a woman must be trained to be submissive to the will of her husband. Westerners contend that this is a slave mentality for the wife, but factually it is not. It is a tactic by which a woman can conquer the heart of her husband, however irritable or cruel he may be. In this case, we clearly see that although Cyavana Muni was not young, but indeed old enough to be Sukanya's grandfather, and was also very irritable, Sukanya, the beautiful young daughter of a king, submitted herself to her old husband and tried to please him in all respects. Thus, she was a faithful and chaste wife.
So before we begin, I would like to beg the blessings of all of our acharyas, especially Srila Prabhupada, to empower us to say something which will help all of you in some way. So, Krishnanandini, I'm going to ask you, what's the main thing that pops out for you, first of all?
Well, the main thing that pops up for me, first of all, is a conversation that I've had with young ladies, and they have trouble with verses like this and a few other verses in our scripture that are always kind of giving instruction to what the woman must do and what she needs to do, and it, putting the ultimate responsibility on the woman. So that kind of pops up first for me, and it's an interesting view of that. And at some point, Uttama, I think we should kind of tell the story a little bit, summarize it, so we can have a more background for it. But that's the first thing. What pops up for you first out of it?
The same thing. I guess when I read a verse like this, I take it as Krishna's instructing me how to better myself as a human being, how to reach out with compassion. When I spoke on this verse another time, we had just finished finding the pony in a seminar. We were giving Bhagavatam class in between seminars. And for those of the audience that don't know, finding the pony is just a cute story that we illustrate for the skill of being able to reach out to find the need in another person, not just react to their grumpiness or their irritability, but to look a little bit deeper and see how can we be compassionate and help find the need in the other person so they can also find their need. So I try to look at the verses on what can I get out of it, not why am I being blamed for everything.
Yes. That's exactly where I went with that, Uttama. What they say, certain minds think alike. I was like, for especially someone on the spiritual journey, when you read the scripture, you're always like, okay, what is the Lord telling me to do to help me grow? And what are some tips or insights that I can get out of this thing? Because ultimately that's the empowerment that comes from scripture, anything else we do. But we're in a world today where there's this real polarization between men and women.
Yeah.
Which is probably a very strong feature of Kali Yuga, actually. So part of understanding this scripture and other scriptures is the context also in which it's.
Right. So maybe we can just bring up the context. Did you want to summarize the story a little bit?
Yes, I'd like to do that. So we have to also understand that this particular incident or marriage took place thousands, maybe millions of years ago. So it was a whole different age. The interaction between men was limited, actually, very much limited, actually. In fact, often women didn't interact with men at all until just about before they got married, except their husbands, their brothers, fathers, cousins, like that. So we have to always keep in mind that a lot of our scriptures happen in a certain cultural context. And at this time, this quick summary of the story, which I think is really a fascinating story, was that there was a great king, and he went hunting in the forest one day, and his daughter said, "Oh, Dad, I want to go with you." And so he took her. And while they were in the forest, something happened to disturb one of the great saintly people that lived there, which was Cyavana Muni. And it turned out that because of that, this was a great sage, and he had all kinds of powers. So the king and his whole entourage of soldiers, they weren't able to eliminate. They couldn't urinate. They couldn't pass through. And so the king, being wise, said, "Uh-oh, something's happened. We've offended somebody." So he began to pray. And then it was revealed to him that they had offended the great sage Cyavana Muni. So in order to sort of rectify that, the king gave his daughter in marriage to the sage. And the daughter now, we have to understand, the sage was old enough to be her grandfather. He was very irritable, cranky old man, and he had he was so old, the scriptures say that you could actually see some of his veins through.
Right. Skin was white.
Yeah.
Yeah, translucent.
Yeah. So he was not at all appealing or attractive to this beautiful young girl, but because of her culture and her training, she accepted the marriage, and she did it with a good attitude.
Mm-hmm.
And because she had such a good attitude, she served her husband. And he became very pleased with her at some point. And a lot of times I like that we need to connect it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he, because he was so pleased with her, changed his whole personality, his looks, and everything. So a lot of times when these men are saying, oh, you should be submissive, well, think about what Cyavana Muni did. If you do have a wife that is cooperating with you, then are you as a man willing to change and do what Cyavana Muni did? He changed how he looked, he changed how he acted, he gave her things that she wanted. So if you read the whole story, then that's part of it. With some.
One small point in that story that struck me was she actually had some of her girlfriends, and she saw these two kind of glowing things in the ground, and it was kind of mysterious, and she wondered what it was, so she kind of poked at it. It turned out it was Cyavana Muni's eyes. So I think that she actually felt very remorseful that she had hurt him, and that's why she was willing to marry him, just to show her remorse and her how she could repay for the mistake that she had done. And so that's why she was very willingly accepting
I love
marriage.
that point. It's a very good point. Sometimes we might miss that because she was actually had been guilty of seeking something into the eyes of the Muni because she was in a different form. And so she accepted responsibility for that. And she was sorry about that. And that's why she was willing to accept his husband. Because one of the things that we in the Grihastha Vision team do, we always encourage people to have premarital education so that, you know, if somebody's really irritable or really bad, you know, you don't have to marry that person. These are the options that we have today.
Right.
But in her situation, because she was remorseful and because her father, you know, gave her, then she was willing to serve like that.
And she also understood that he was a very qualified saintly person and that she would be able to grow by serving him. So she also made that choice deliberately. Yes,
she did. And, you know, this shows like in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, when he talks about the qualities of women, he says, they're intelligent and different things like that. So the young lady was quite intelligent in the way she analyzed her service, her duty, and she kind of accepted in a way that this was God's will too, the way everything had happened, because it wasn't a normal occurrence for her to go hunting with her dad. This day she wanted to go, and so it wasn't a normal occurrence that she would poke the little eyes in the thing, but she kind of could see, okay, Krishna had sort of arranged this, let me accept it.
So we were talking about like her attitude and her being intelligent, and Prabhupada says in the purport that the men, they like to have the superior position, and that she understood that. So that can, we can try to understand it, we can resent it, we could do all sorts of things with that kind of a statement. How do you deal with that?
You know, Jim, this actually is one of the stories that I've really studied over the years, because initially I had some thoughts and concerns about it, but the more I read it and the more I realize that it's really given as a help. And the thought is, you know, if you're in any relationship and you want that relationship to be successful, then you should understand what is the nature of the person you're with. And I think, you know, here Prabhupada is saying we should do it with the husband, but the truth is, any relationship, if you want it to be successful, then you understand the particular personality that you're dealing with. You know, what do they like? What don't they like? What ticks them off? What doesn't tick them off? So it's really something to help us.
Right.
To say, oh, okay, I'm married. Let's say someone has had premarital education, and they get married, and then they're with this person, and then, they've passed the honeymoon stage, and they begin to see these different little quote-unquote flaws. But then if you say, okay, I'm married, and I want this marriage to be successful, so how do I do it? Then I try to understand what is the mood of this person I'm with and work with that. And I don't think that diminishes us at all. I think that's part of our intelligence.
Right. Yeah, for sure. When they talk about men wanting to be in the superior position, my understanding is that they have a very strong need to look after us and protect us. And in order to do that, they, need to feel a little bit in charge so that they can protect us and look after us. So that's what I understand about superior position. Not that, they think they're greater than the other person. It's just that they want to keep that in the forefront of their mind, that I must look after, my wife and my family. And so I have to take charge and be responsible. Because we see that the most used adjective for man in the Srimad Bhagavatam and Prabhupada's purports is responsible. A responsible man. We often, and with women, it's the chaste woman and the responsible man. So I see that it's not that they want to be in a superior position. They just want to be able to do their job in a way that makes them feel good about it and feels good about themselves that they are doing their job.
That's right. And when you, in a relationship, there's a teamwork aspect. We always say the same thing, teamwork makes the dream work.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're seeing yourself as a part of a team, then a team is not really competing against each other.
Right.
It's saying, okay, what qualities or attributes that I have that can make this work, and other team members think like that. So in a relationship with a husband and wife, you become a team. Now, we're in Kali Yuga, so sometimes this as we were speaking a little bit about polarity between men and women, is really agitated more. Mm-hmm. And what has helped me, I think, is the basic fundamental principle of being a devotee is service, right? We always say, das, anu das, right? I'm the servant of the servant of the servant. And that's not a Kali Yuga prominent thing, because nobody wants to be a servant. But if you want to be successful in your devotional life and in your marriage life, that mood of being a servant. And so when you see things like this, to me, it's like giving you little keys how to be a good servant, because ultimately that's what it is. So that's true for the women, and that's true for the men also. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a little easier for, mostly, we make a lot of generalizations for women, because we tend to have this more nurturing, in general, more surrendering position. So that's a plus for us in terms of spiritual life. Even the scriptures say that. So this mood of, how do I serve you? And I think that's the mood that Sukanya had, when she was.
And we see that Prabhupada said that that was I forget how he worded it, the key to the woman's success or whatever, that she could understand
her temperament, and please,
the victory that she could, that she could understand her husband's temperament. Yeah. It's very interesting, because we started some group premarital counseling with a group of devotees in Eastern Europe. And almost each one of them brought up that since they switched from since they switched from the brahmacharya ashram over to Grihastha life, they were able to understand themselves so much better because of the way that their wife nurtured them and brought out their ability to access their emotions. And they found that they had grown so much and that they were able to like really figure themselves out. So I think that's another result of us helping to fulfill the needs of our husband, is that when his needs are nicely met, it helps him to figure himself out. And plus it, naturally encourages the reciprocation, like we were saying. They're great.
Yeah, because she was Cyavana Muni.
Right. So
and he later reciprocated big time.
Because that's the nature of relationships in bhakti, that there's always reciprocation. Krishna's always reciprocating with us. And so that reciprocation does need to be there. And so some of these words are not denying that reciprocation. They're just giving hints to people's nature.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point too, Uttama. And then how do you bring out the best in someone? So you're in a relationship or a marriage, each one can think about that, in that mood of nurturing or service can bring out the best. And, a lot of the roughness that people experience in a relationship, if you do it with a little wisdom in the relationship, just like, let's say we got a lot of stress in today's world, bills and COVID, family matters, and, so if someone's stressed out and then you respond in a stressed out way,
right,
then you're automatically going to lose.
Right.
So here, let's say someone's stressed out and you deliberately lower your voice and you deliberately, are a little more quiet and calm, then the tendency would be more likely that you could get a better response.
Right.
So when I look at a text like this, I try to look at those kind of keys that would help me. I'm not saying it's always easy though, Uttama, because you're merging two people together in a marriage, and people have their own ideas how things work. And how do you decide whose idea trumps the other's idea? So these are some, I think, tips that we get to start thinking in that direction.
Just like that verse that we often quote from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, how he's recommending that we each choose for a spouse someone who we think is a better devotee than ourselves. So that automatically loses the superiority mentality, even though one might take responsibility in a certain way in a relationship. That's a detail. And the other is that we don't, he said that one shouldn't think that one has the right over the property or service of another.
Yeah.
So that automatically suggests that we need to compromise, negotiate in order to help each other get their needs met. It's, we're not on our own anymore. That's why people like relationships, is they have somebody to help them figure things out in life and get through life. And so that needs to be mutual and reciprocal. It's not just a one-way path, which I think people can read this verse and think it's all one-sided, like you were starting out with. The lady has to do all the work. The man's just lying there, getting the grapes popped in his mouth and, getting his feet massaged. And, it's not at all suggesting that. And so,
I like the word. Oh, I'm sorry. Go on, man.
I was done.
The problem is victory in a relationship. Yes. That's the goal. Well, why do you think, Uttama, that even devotees think of submissiveness as such a bad word when it's actually, I learn the truth, approach the spiritual master, be submissive? Why do you think that we, some of us see that as sort of a negative?
Well, there's the word surrender, Prabhu, and there's kind of saranagati, where you gradually, with reciprocation, begin to surrender because of relationships. And I think because we have relationships with Krishna, we're able to get that reciprocation so that we can surrender more and more because we see that reciprocation. I think what is the block when we hear surrender, Prabhu, is we don't have that gradual trust that the other person is going to reciprocate and I'm not going to lose everything. So, you see that with the gopis, they have that complete trust in Krishna that I don't care if you trample me, you forget me with, doesn't matter, I'm still yours, because they have that 1000% trust in the love of Krishna. So I think that we're not going to go from a Nityabhata to 100% pure devotee in one leap. We're not Hanuman crossing the ocean there. It's step by step. And we have to realize that. And a lot of the surrender is properly reciprocating with someone.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Guru, Krishna, our partners.
Yeah. And I think another thing that may be a little helpful, I like that point you made about the gopis is, and it requires some reflection that, when you get married, you're not just making a vow to that person. You make a vow to Krishna or to God. It's, Bhakti Tirtha Swami gives that example of the triangle.
Right.
Krishna's top and the husband and wife. It makes the whole, perfect figure. So a lot of times if we approach marriage as my vow to Krishna, also my commitment to my guru, for example, then I think that takes some of maybe the roughness off the word submission. I'm in this relationship and I'm serving and I'm doing, and not just for this person, but for God, for the love personified, that whole vision of understanding that, why are we in the relationship, or what is the essence or the center of that relationship. And when we see it as Krishna, like I may be serving my husband, but it's really serving Krishna,
right?
Then that puts a different
perspective.
Yeah.
Right.
And I kind of think that's kind of how Sukanya operated. I mean, she served her husband, but she saw it as an overall serving God or serving Providence or serving even her father, like that.
Yes. So then the dilemma comes up. How do we know when it's no longer the right thing for me to do to keep on serving in this difficult situation?
That's a good question. I sure want you to weigh in on this one too. And we talked a lot about that when abuse is there, like physical abuse or even emotional abuse or even financial abuse. And that's a pretty tough one because for a spiritual person, you want to see divorce as sort of the last possible option. So you want to try to do as much as you can to, and that's why we put such a heavy emphasis on premarital, especially in today's world, get good, solid premarital education from qualified caring professionals before you get married, so that often you may choose to wait, or you may say, oh, you know what, this doesn't seem like this is the person I should be, so that prevention is so much better than, later trying to remedy something that's gone awry. But I would say if there's physical abuse and there's no option to get help, and sometimes a couple may choose to separate for a while with the hope that each one will work on themselves so that they can then come back together. And that's sort of a good thing when there's a lot of problems in a marriage sometimes that get really intense. But then when there's the extreme physical abuse or even extreme emotional abuse and there's no desire to help or to acknowledgement, then sometimes, what was that quote from Prabhupada where he said, we don't have to stay with a bad husband or
well, Prabhupada
like
said that does not mean that one has to stay with a person who's fallen.
Yeah. So I think within that sort of those parameters, there's some options for us today. And again, Desha, Kalapatra, time, place, and circumstance. We are not in a culture where we have a whole community supporting the right thing for people to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in a good culture where people, if something's going wrong, other people in the community come and they try to help out, and
Right.
we can't tolerate, but we don't quite have that system set up yet. So sometimes we have to leave those marriages. There's drug or substance abuse that extreme, and people are not getting help. So what would you add to that?
I think you pretty much summed it up. It's really hard in a relationship where your complete sense of self has just disappeared, like with extreme emotional abuse. And it's pretty hard to function and keep your sadhana strong. And I mean, that's when we really need to. I think we also have to see the philosophy that we are a valuable spirit, soul, eternal servant of Krishna, and we are also valuable. And sometimes we need that self-compassion also.
Yeah.
Not sometimes, we always need it. And so it's just a matter of seeing whether or not we actually have the strength and the ability to stay in this situation, because it's not, some people maybe can, and other people it's going to be almost impossible for them. So how to really be introspective and see, am I doing the most I can? What could I do to change? It obviously has to be a last resort. But when we're just not, the other person is just not able to reciprocate in even a human manner, what to speak of a devotional manner, I don't think that Krishna expects us to just stay there and be abused.
No, I'm pretty sure that he doesn't. And then even Prabhupada gave that option, not to stay with the fallen man, The wisdom is try to get help from mentors and people that care about you and care about the relationship. Not a one-sided deal, but they care about the relationship. They can give you some, hopeful, good advice or help along the way. But yeah, in those cases of extreme emotional abuse and physical abuse where people are not willing to improve or get better, get help in a consistent way, then, that option has to be considered. Mm-hmm. Sadly, yes. Because we really would love to see all marriages work, especially in a spiritual framework, but we're in Kali Yuga, so that's not how it is.
Right. And sometimes we see that, as we started out, the preaching is that it's all on the woman to keep it together.
Yeah.
And I don't see that verse is giving you that out, because we see that later on Sukanya, Cyavana Muni, he very much reciprocated. So I think we have to be very, very cautious when we hear an interpretation of a verse like this that is very one-sided.
Yeah.
And puts all the blame or the responsibility on another party and doesn't take it for themselves. Because, my understanding of reading the scriptures is I'm supposed to see what I need to learn, not I'm supposed to see what you need to get doing, Prabhu.
That reminds me of that story where Radha Swami said that he would come to this particular community, and for years, every time he comes, this one couple would say, Maharaj, we need to see you. And, Maharaj being kind would see them. And each time they'd be having problems and issues, and he told the wife, you become the servant of your husband. And he told the husband, you become the servant of your wife. And then the one time he came back, they were still at it again. And then what made Maharaj chuckle was that each one was saying, Maharaj, you told him to serve me. And the husband said, you told her to serve me. But they missed the whole entire point that he was making there. So I think that, you have a very good point that when we read the scriptures, we have to see what is Krishna or Guru trying to tell us to help us grow. And we don't have to impose that on anybody else. Just try to get the essence out for our growth, our spiritual growth.
And that's the essence of our Vaishnava philosophy. I think some people sometimes read the Shastras and they pull out all these Vedic situations of which they really don't know all the nuances and the subtleties of what supported everything. But because they're coming from a material platform where perhaps they've been abused in their life, or they've been taught to imbibe very strong non-Vaishnava principles that I need to get what I need and tough with everybody else, that imprint in the mind causes us to read the scriptures in such a way that it reinforces our negative attitudes. And so I think that we have to be very cautious that we're not putting a material meaning into the scriptures where that intention was not at all there. And that's a great disservice.
Oh, I love that, Uttama. And I think that's why a person who is selfless and dedicated to serving God, like Srila Prabhupada is, they can state the truth, even though sometimes it sounds a little hard or a little controversial, because they ultimately have where they're not, this is not a material thing, this is a spiritual guidance that I'm giving you. And if you study where you need to grow out of it, you'll be benefited.
Right.
And so that's why, like, sometimes people have issues and they say, wow, some of these things are quite controversial, but because of it's what you said, we're still here, you and I, and we're not, we're still in Krishna consciousness. We love Prabhupada, and we accept, because we hopefully are trying to take the spiritual essence of these scriptures and use it to grow and hopefully help others to grow.
And I see that when we learn the lesson that Krishna's put us in this particular situation for, it's almost like instantly we've passed and we don't have to go on with that lesson. Krishna just miraculously arranges a different circumstance, or, because, hey, we're out of high school, we don't have to go to the building anymore. So it's really incumbent on us to see, what do I need to learn? Because sometimes we get in these situations because we also have a screen in our mind that this is what relationships are. And so we get sucked in again and again to these negative materialistic relationships.
Yeah. Good, very good point. And, we've talked about in the Grihastha Vision team negative paradigms that people have about marriage, family, and that's, again, taking something that should have a spiritual insight and putting a material spin on it. And so we have to be careful of that. But ultimately, when we appreciate that the Guru and Krishna wants us to be healthy and happy, then all these, we'll start seeing these things as tools for that. And that's why we recommend that for people who are serious about spiritual life or marriage life, go on and get as many tools as you can.
Right.
From the scriptures, from wherever, so you can help your relationship and help yourself.
Right. So I think maybe we can wrap it up here. Do you have any final concluding inspiration you got from this verse?
Well, I thoroughly have appreciated me having this discussion. I really like the format of it, and I think it's good for us to be able to share. And I would say that for anybody to look at the context of any scripture, don't just take one verse out of one chapter and think that you understand the whole thing. It's very important. That's why we have these scriptures, and they have a context. So it's like when you go in a house, you have different rooms in the house. You can't say, well, I know what the house looks like if you've only seen one tiny part of the room.
Right.
Whole house, So to look at the scriptures in context, and then also have a trust for the presenter of the scriptures. I think a lot of times we may not understand everything that Prabhupada said. It may even kind of be a little, ooh. But because we trust Prabhupada as a bona fide representative of Krishna, as a lover of God, as a well-wisher, then we said, well, maybe I don't understand this right now, but hopefully later on as I grow in progress, I can understand it. So I would say see everything in context and appreciate the gift of these great souls that Krishna has given us to help us grow. And I would say it's good to have discussion too, like we're doing.
Sure.
It's good to talk about kind of thing with other people who have a serious desire to grow and make progress. And then one final thing is we're in the material world, and so it's very rare that you'll see anything ideal.
Right.
It's the material world. So making a good, I don't want to say make a bad bargain, but in a way it is. It's kind of a bad bargain to be in the material world. But still, Krishna has given us each other to help us grow. And then I just say try to take advantage of that. Get the tools. She spoke about finding the pony, reflective listening. All these are tools that will help us in any marriage and relationship. So that would be my final thing.
I think for me, what I got out of it is that if we have the right attitude, and that attitude is also using our intelligence on the best way to progress, and then we have a joyful attitude on taking that path, that Krishna's going to reciprocate, just like we see that Cyavana Muni reciprocated with Sukanya. And I think that attitude is really the key, because when you have the right attitude, even reversals don't become so traumatic, because you see Krishna's plan in it. You see, oh, I have to learn this, and oh, there's a way I can overcome this and get better. And we don't just give up and feel a victim, but when we have the right attitude, then we can nicely make progress. And part of the right attitude is not accepting abuse, because I don't think that this verse is saying that at all. But looking for the situations where we can serve with love and make advancement.
Very good. Thank you. I like that. I think that's a good way to sort of end it.
So that was lots of fun sharing with you, and I look forward to our next tough verse.
Yes, yes. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.